Look closely at this assembly line. A robotic arm smoothly pieces together a complex microchip inside a pristine, heavily monitored manufacturing facility. It's operating perfectly. Thousands of components are moving without a single disruption. But miles away, in a hidden corner of the internet, a different reality unfolds. A ransomware group calling itself WorldLeaks has posted an auction on a dark web marketplace. They are offering 200,000 highly confidential corporate manufacturing files, amounting to roughly 630 gigabytes of data, for sale to the highest bidder. The compromised data belongs to Tata Electronics. As one of India's largest electronics manufacturers, Tata sits squarely at the center of the global technology supply chain, producing critical components for massive international clients like Apple and Tesla. When Tata confirmed the cybersecurity incident, they noted a peculiar detail. Despite a massive volume of data reportedly being siphoned off their servers, their physical manufacturing operations continued without a hitch. The assembly lines never stopped. Ransomware groups have found they don't need to stop the assembly lines to hold a manufacturer hostage. By quietly walking out the digital backdoor with the blueprints, they gain leverage without ever alerting the factory floor. This hub-and-spoke diagram shows why a component manufacturer makes such an attractive target. A central facility like Tata Electronics sits directly between global raw material suppliers and major consumer tech brands. It holds thousands of sensitive engineering documents, unreleased production specifications, and valuable third-party supplier information. Hollywood often depicts cyber attacks as rapid-fire keyboard battles against impenetrable firewalls. The reality is far more mundane. Attackers rarely force their way in. They simply log in, exploiting pre-existing, poorly secured pathways. Investigators commonly trace these breaches back to simple entry points. An employee might click a malicious link in a phishing email, or attackers might purchase compromised usernames and passwords from underground markets to access a vulnerable remote desktop server. Once inside, the intruders use a technique called lateral movement. Starting from a low-level account, they quietly navigate deeper into the corporate network. They escalate their privileges and map out the servers over weeks or months, carefully avoiding administrative alarms. A global supply chain relies on the security of its least protected login. One compromised password can expose the blueprints for an entire industry. This split-screen timeline illustrates a shift in extortion tactics. On the left is traditional ransomware, where attackers immediately lock up systems to demand payment. On the right is the modern double extortion playbook. Here, ransomware gangs prioritize silently copying and extracting vast amounts of data over weeks, long before they ever deploy locking mechanisms. In the Tata incident, this silent extraction was massive. Attackers successfully copied 200,000 files and smuggled them completely out of the network, all while the factory floor below operated without a single interruption. Once detected, incident response teams immediately initiate containment. Their critical first step is to rapidly isolate the affected servers and lock down network segments, physically cutting off the attacker's access to stop any further data loss. Then begins the digital forensics process. Security analysts scour firewall logs, comb through VPN access records, and review endpoint telemetry. They meticulously retrace the attacker's exact steps through the network to figure out how they got in and exactly what they touched. Investigators then move to attribution. They compare the digital footprints, tactics, and malware signatures left behind against known threat actors. This independent verification is necessary to confirm the initial dark web claims made by groups like WorldLeaks. In a breach of this scale, investigators focus on two critical objectives: identifying the specific adversary holding the data, and definitively proving which intellectual property is now in their hands. When supply chain documents are exposed, the fallout spreads outward. Major downstream clients, reportedly including Apple, are forced to launch their own independent investigations to determine if their proprietary designs were swept up in the Tata breach. An intellectual property breach triggers a cascade of long-term costs: intense regulatory scrutiny, permanent reputational damage, and the immediate devaluation of trade secrets once they hit the public domain. This diagram shows the necessary security pivot for modern manufacturers: zero-trust architecture. A zero-trust network inherently trusts no user or device. Even if an employee is already inside the network, they must pass continuous verification checkpoints to move between isolated internal zones. Supporting this architecture requires specific technical controls. This includes enforcing multi-factor authentication for every login, utilizing continuous endpoint detection to monitor for suspicious behavior, and maintaining immutable offline backups that attackers cannot delete or encrypt. In the modern global supply chain, cybersecurity is a critical boardroom priority. Protecting the digital blueprint is just as essential